Hello everyone. Have a nice evening. Enjoy a good ghost story with the gentle sound of rain from Blackridge Stories, and sleep well. If you find these stories interesting, please subscribe and comment for me. Thank you very much everyone. And now, without keeping you waiting any longer, let's go to part one of the story. The Ghost of the Morris Theater. Charleston is a city known for its charm and history. Cobblestone streets, gas lanterns, and whispers of the past that echo through its old buildings. Among these is the Morris Theater, a beautiful, century-old structure nestled between rows of art galleries and antique shops. Its elegant facade, grand marquee, and carved stone columns make it a relic of the past, lovingly preserved. But behind the velvet curtains and the gold leaf moldings lies a darker legend, one that has haunted the theater for decades. They say the Morris Theater is not entirely empty after closing hours. Employees, performers, and even audience members have spoken in hushed tones about the ghost of a man, a former actor, whose life ended on stage during a performance long ago. His name, though faded in theater records, lives on in whispers and midnight footsteps. A tragic night. It happened sometime in the 1940s, during the height of the Morris Theater's golden era. The show was a tragic drama, and the lead role was played by Thomas Ellery, a well-respected but increasingly troubled actor. Those close to him said he had grown withdrawn in the weeks before opening night. He spoke of hearing voices during rehearsals and claimed someone, or something, was watching him from the shadows of the balcony. At first, others chalked it up to nerves or exhaustion, but then came the final night of the performance. As the curtain rose for the second act, Thomas took his place at center stage. His character was meant to deliver a monologue, a long and sorrowful goodbye. The audience fell silent, captivated. His voice trembled with emotion. Some wept at the raw pain in his delivery. But Thomas never finished the scene. Midway through his lines, he clutched his chest, staggered backward, and collapsed. At first, the audience thought it was part of the performance. But when the lights dimmed and the curtain dropped early, the truth became clear. Thomas Ellery had died of a heart attack, right there on stage, under the spotlight. The theater closed for 3 days and mourning. But even after performances resumed, something in the air had changed. Whispers in the wings. It started subtly. A stagehand named Gloria reported hearing faint footsteps backstage when she was alone, followed by the smell of old cologne that seemed to appear from nowhere. At first, she dismissed it, until one evening, she saw a shadow pass across the stage during rehearsal. No one else saw it, and no one else was supposed to be there. The projectionist claimed that lights would flicker just before the curtain moved on its own, rising or falling without warning. Once, during a matinee, the curtain dropped prematurely in the middle of a scene, startling both actors and audience. The control booth swore they hadn't touched a thing. Then came the incident with the piano. A grand piano sat in the orchestra pit, rarely used except for special performances. One janitor swore that while cleaning late one night, he heard a single note played, softly at first, then again and again, growing louder, until he fled the building. The management began to joke nervously about the resident ghost, calling him Thomas, though no one really wanted to believe it was true. Still, the reports continued, and the legend grew. The actor in the balcony. Some say Thomas never left because he believed the show must go on. Others think he was rehearsing for death, and the stage simply blurred the line between performance and reality. Regardless, his presence seemed most powerful in the upper balcony, the place he claimed someone had watched him from before he died. One young actress, new to the company, had never heard the stories. One afternoon, while practicing lines alone on stage, she looked up and saw a man sitting in the far left seat of the balcony. She thought he was a manager or director watching her audition. She kept going, hoping to impress. Afterward, she mentioned the man to her fellow cast members. They turned pale. That balcony section had been closed off for renovations all week. When they checked, the seat where she'd seen the man was covered in dust. There were no footprints. Caught on camera. In recent years, amateur ghost hunters and paranormal investigators have visited the Morris Theater. Some claim to have caught anomalies on camera. Shadowy figures flitting past the wings, unexplained cold spots, or eerie whispers picked up on audio devices. One team recorded what they believed was the sound of faint clapping, as if an invisible audience was still applauding a performance long since ended. In one particularly chilling incident, a crew member captured a still photo of the empty stage during a break in rehearsals. Later, when reviewing the image, they saw a faint figure standing at center stage, arms outstretched, mouth slightly open, as if mid-monologue. It looked just like Thomas Ellery, a ghost with purpose. Despite the fear, many who work at the Morris Theater have grown used to the strange occurrences. Some believe Thomas is not a malevolent spirit, but rather a lingering soul who loved the stage too much to leave. They say he's a perfectionist, adjusting the curtain or lights, nudging props into place, ensuring the show runs smoothly, even from beyond the grave. Actors have taken to leaving a single rose on the edge of the stage before opening night, in memory of Thomas. They say it keeps him calm. Others leave a script marked with his final monologue, as if offering him a second chance to finish the performance he never completed. The Morris Theater still thrives today, a local treasure steeped in charm and mystery. Tourists visit, unaware of the eyes that might be watching from the shadows. But for those who've worked behind the scenes, who've heard the footsteps, smelled the cologne, or seen the curtain fall with no hands to guide it, the legend of Thomas Ellery is as real as the boards beneath their feet. So if you ever find yourself alone in the Morris Theater, and you hear someone reciting lines in an empty room, don't be afraid. It's probably just Thomas. Let's get to part 2 of the story, the ghost story of Miss Edna's house, nestled near the quiet town of Shepherdstown, West Virginia, a place known for Civil War history and eerie charm. There sits an old farmhouse at the edge of a wooded trail. The house, now weather-worn and draped in vines, belonged once to a woman named Edna Holloway. Time has erased much of her legacy, but not her presence. Miss Edna, as the townsfolk called her, lived alone in the house for over 40 years. A recluse by nature, she rarely ventured into town, and when she did, she spoke little, her gray eyes distant, as if half of her lived in another world. Rumor had it she lost someone, a fiancé or perhaps a sibling, in the war long ago. Others said she simply preferred silence over society. But after she passed away in that very house, strange things began to happen. A quiet passing. Edna Holloway died quietly in her bed one cold November night. She was found days later by a neighbor who noticed the mail piling up and the chimney no longer smoking. She had no living relatives, so the town arranged her funeral. It was sparsely attended. A few people remembered her with a mix of respect and unease. She had never been unkind, but something about her always felt distant, unknowable. Her home was left untouched for years. No one wanted to buy it. Some said it felt wrong to step inside. Others claimed the house seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The boards creaked too frequently for a structure standing still. Windows would fog from the inside, and at night, lights were said to flicker upstairs in the room where Miss Edna once slept, despite no electricity running to the house. The first visitors. It wasn't long before teenagers dared each other to sneak into the place after dark. Shepherdstown High School students told stories of hearing whispers in the kitchen and footsteps coming down the stairs, slow and deliberate, as if someone were pacing in long-forgotten slippers. One boy, Luke, claimed that the front door, which had been sealed shut with chains, swung open silently as he approached it. When he entered, a breeze passed by him, carrying a smell like old perfume and cedarwood. Upstairs, in the hallway, the door to Edna's bedroom creaked open on its own. Inside the room, Luke said, with a rocking chair that had not moved in decades. But that night, it rocked gently back and forth. Miss Edna's room. Everyone who entered Miss Edna's bedroom came away with a similar story. There was something odd about the light in that room. Even on cloudy days, the window always caught a strange shimmer, as if reflecting not the outside world, but something else entirely. Visitors often described a flickering effect, as though candlelight danced along the walls, even though no candles were present. And then there were the sounds. At around 3 a.m., people reported hearing soft music, a music box or an old record playing a melancholy tune. faint but clear. The melody would stop if anyone moved closer. Once, a pair of ghost hunters left an audio recorder overnight. In the morning, they found a recording of a woman's voice humming, just barely above a whisper. They say it matched an old lullaby from the 1920s. Open doors and cold air. The most common sign of Miss Edna's ghost is the sound of doors opening and closing, especially late at night. Neighbors have reported hearing the distinct slam of the back door, though no one was seen entering or leaving. Some even claimed to see it. The door creaking open, revealing a dark hallway, and then closing gently, as if someone invisible were going about her nightly routine. Inside the house, drawers would open, cupboard doors would be found ajar in the morning, and chairs would be moved, ever so slightly. A real estate agent once tried to sell the house, but left shaken after showing. She said the moment she stepped inside, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees, and when she climbed the stairs to the bedroom, she found the bed made perfectly, with fresh lavender on the pillow. She locked the door behind her and never returned. The woman in the window. Perhaps the most unsettling part of the legend is the figure often seen in the upstairs window, Miss Edna's window. A woman in a white nightgown, her hair pinned back, her expression unreadable. She doesn't wave. She doesn't move. She just watches. Many passing by at night report the same thing. A pale woman standing in the window, gazing down at the road, sometimes even lit from within by a soft, flickering glow. One man swore that when he slowed down to take a picture, the woman turned and walked away. The photograph he took, it showed only a reflection of the trees outside, but in the corner of the image, barely visible, was a faint outline, like a person standing just beyond the glass. Not alone. Miss Edna's presence never seemed malevolent. If anything, she seemed lonely. Those who felt her say it's like being watched by someone who's trying to remember your name. The house feels lived in, cared for, as though Edna still tends to it, cleaning at night, humming softly, opening windows to let in the breeze. Paranormal investigators have recorded electromagnetic spikes in her room, especially near the dresser where she kept her belongings. A cross-stitched handkerchief, still folded neatly inside, carried the initials EH and faint traces of lavender oil. No matter how many times it's moved, the next day it always returns to its place, a place of memory. Today, Edna's house remains vacant. The town council has debated tearing it down, but locals always protest. It's a part of Shepherdstown, they say. Let her stay. Some even leave flowers at the front steps, wildflowers, the kind that used to grow in her garden. And every so often, someone walking by swears they hear the sound of a rocking chair from within. Not angry, not tragic, just a presence, just Edna. Let's get to part 3 of the story. The ghost of Oatman Bridge. In the quiet, forested backroads of West Virginia lies a forgotten piece of infrastructure. Oatman Bridge, a rusting iron structure suspended over the black waters of a narrow creek. It hasn't been used for official traffic in years. The town nearby, long past its prime, speaks of the bridge in hushed tones, not because of its age or danger, but because of the man on the bridge. They say if you drive across Oatman Bridge at night, especially around the witching hour, you might see him, standing perfectly still in the center, his face hard to make out, his clothes wet, his posture rigid, and when your car draws close enough to make out his features, he vanishes. The history of the bridge. Oatman Bridge was constructed in the 1930s during a regional effort to connect isolated towns with larger road systems. For decades, it served as a lifeline for travelers and tradesmen alike, until newer highways rendered it obsolete. Sometime in the early 1980s, a fatal accident occurred there. A man, some say a drifter, others say a local, was driving home late on a rainy night. The weather was rough, the road slick. He lost control of his car just before reaching the middle of the bridge. The vehicle flipped, broke through the guardrail, and plunged into the creek below. The water was shallow, but the crash was violent. Emergency crews found the car the next morning, partially submerged. The man inside had died instantly. His body, however, wasn't found in the driver's seat. It was lying outside the car, on the bridge itself, soaked and twisted. suggesting that he may have climbed out before collapsing, or something else pulled him out. That's when the sightings began. Midnight encounters. The first people to report seeing the man on the bridge were a young couple returning from a late-night movie in the nearby town of Wheeling. As they approached Oatman Bridge, the headlights caught the figure of a man standing in the dead center of the road. He didn't move. The driver slowed down, rolled down his window, and called out. No answer. The figure just stood there. As the car rolled within 20 feet of the man, the driver reached for the door handle, perhaps to offer help, but before he could step out, the man vanished. Not turned and walked away, vanished. Gone in an instant. The couple drove across in silence, hearts pounding, not daring to look back. Patterns in the sightings. Dozens of similar stories have followed over the years. The man is always seen in the same place, the middle of the bridge. Always at night. Always alone. His appearance is consistent. Tall, lean, dark jacket, head slightly bowed. Some say he looks soaked, as if he just climbed out of the creek. Others insist he makes eye contact before disappearing, his eyes hollow and full of sorrow. One common detail binds all stories together. He never speaks. Sometimes the car's engine stutters as people approach him. The radio fills with static. Headlights flicker. Then, as if triggered by proximity or recognition, he vanishes into the damp night air. A trucker's tale. One particularly chilling account came from a trucker named Dale, who took a wrong turn during a delivery and ended up on Oatman Bridge around 2 a.m. Not knowing the bridge's history, he drove across, only to slam on the brakes when he saw a man standing directly in his lane. Swearing under his breath, Dale jumped out of the cab with a flashlight and called out, "You okay, buddy?" Silence. He walked closer. The man's features were oddly muted, as though lit by light that wasn't entirely real. Dale took another step, and the flashlight flickered, then died completely. He instinctively turned to head back to the truck, and the man was standing right behind him. Dale never ran faster in his life. He swears that as he drove away, the rearview mirror showed the man still standing on the bridge, staring after him. Ghost hunters and equipment malfunctions. In recent years, paranormal investigators have visited Oatman Bridge. Some have captured thermal signatures that move like a person's silhouette, only to vanish mid-recording. One team claimed that their EMF detectors went haywire the moment they stepped onto the bridge, registering spikes as though standing next to a high-voltage power source. But the most disturbing piece of evidence came from a woman named Teresa, a medium who joined a team one foggy October night. As she stood on the bridge, eyes closed, she whispered, "He doesn't know he's dead. He's waiting for someone to pull him out." When she opened her eyes, she claimed to see the man standing only inches from her face. The footage shows her backing away and falling to the ground, gasping for air. Who was he? Despite the urban legends, the man's identity has never been confirmed. Some speculate he was a local named Jared Boone, whose death in 1981 matches the general timeline. Others suggest he was never from the area at all, perhaps a traveler caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some even believe that the bridge itself is cursed, that whatever happened to the man opened a door, and now something walks there every night. Not necessarily the spirit of the deceased, but a residue, a loop in time, a memory playing out again and again. The warning: locals warn travelers not to stop on Oatman Bridge after dark, not out of superstition, but from lived experience. If you see the man, they say, keep driving. Don't look at him. Don't speak. Just go. One woman, who ignored that advice, claims she still dreams of the man. In the dreams, she's standing on the bridge. It's raining. He's reaching out to her. And every time she tries to run, the bridge stretches farther and farther away, trapping her with him. The haunting continues. To this day, Oatman Bridge remains a curiosity for thrill seekers and ghost hunters alike. But for the residents of the surrounding area, it's more than just a creepy story. It's part of the landscape, a place where tragedy bleeds into legend. And if you find yourself driving that way one lonely night, watch the center of the bridge. If someone's standing there, don't stop, don't blink, and whatever you do, don't open the door. Let's move on to part 4 of the story. The spirit of the old soldier, not far from the quiet streets of Wheeling, West Virginia. Beyond the tree-lined road that curls past the old stone church lies a forgotten military cemetery, Rose Hollow grounds, overgrown with wild grass and brambles, and visited only by history enthusiasts and the occasional grieving descendant. The graveyard holds the remains of dozens of Union soldiers who fought and died in the Civil War. Among them lies a man whose story refuses to rest. They call him the Soldier in Blue, a restless grave. The legend began in the late 19th century, when caretakers of the cemetery reported strange phenomena around a particular headstone. It was marked simply, Private Elias M. Carter, 12th Regiment, Union Army, fell in 1864. The stone is chipped and tilted now, the engraved letters faded by time. But locals say the spirit of Elias Carter has never truly left the grounds. At night, especially in late fall when fog clings to the hilltops, visitors have reported seeing a man in a Civil War uniform slowly pacing between the rows of graves. His head bowed, musket slung over his back. He walks with purpose, as though he's still on patrol, still bound by some duty left unfulfilled. First sightings. The earliest modern report came from a teenage boy named Caleb in 1973. He had wandered into the cemetery late one October evening, drawn by rumors from school. Armed with a flashlight and a cheap camera, he stepped among the graves, daring the ghost to appear. He didn't have to wait long. Standing near the center of the field, beside Elias Carter's grave, was a man dressed in a dark blue military coat. Caleb later said the figure turned his head slowly, revealing a pale, weathered face beneath a slouch hat. But there was something wrong. His eyes were completely black, void of light or reflection. Panicked, Caleb ran. When he looked back from the edge of the woods, the figure was gone. His photo came out mostly dark, but in the upper left corner, faint and blurry, was the shape of a man holding what appeared to be a rifle. Echoes of war. Some believe the spirit of Private Carter remains behind because he was never able to return home. His body, shipped in a pine coffin from a battlefield in Georgia, was buried without family present. His war diary, now housed in a museum nearby, ends abruptly just 3 days before his death. The final entry reads, "I heard them again last night. Voices, calling from the hills. I pray it's not my turn yet." What voices he heard remain a mystery, but paranormal investigators believe he may have died during a night raid, ambushed while on watch, possibly never seeing the blow that ended him. The nature of his death, some say, is what keeps him tethered to the site. Paranormal activity. In recent years, ghost hunting groups have flocked to Rose Hollow to test the legend for themselves. They've captured strange sounds on EVP recordings, muffled orders, the shuffle of boots, and once, a haunting rendition of taps played with no known source. One chilling incident involved a thermal camera that picked up a human-shaped heat signature standing still behind a tree, although no one was physically there. The figure held still for over 2 minutes, then disappeared completely from the screen. Another investigator swears that during a moonless night in 2017, he felt a strong tap on his shoulder, only to turn and find no one behind him. His audio recorder, however, captured a faint voice saying, "Report, soldier." Local lore. Elderly residents in Wheeling tell tales passed down from their grandparents. Stories of farm animals getting spooked at night near the cemetery, of lanterns glowing where no path should be, and of hearing footsteps crunching leaves behind them though they walked alone. One man, a retired teacher named Harold, claims that when he was a child, he wandered into the cemetery during a foggy morning and became disoriented. As panic set in, a man in uniform appeared from the mist, took his hand, and silently guided him back to the main path. When he turned to thank him, the man was already gone. He felt real, Harold says, like skin and bone. But he wasn't. Not really. A silent sentinel. Despite the ghostly encounters, there's a general sense that Elias Carter's spirit is not malevolent. He seems driven by duty, endlessly walking the same worn path between the graves, as though standing guard over his fallen comrades. Witnesses often describe a profound sadness in his presence, like stepping into the weight of unfinished war. Interestingly, his ghost is never seen during the day. Only when the sun sets and the cemetery falls into shadow does he begin his lonely vigil. Some say he appears more often on the anniversary of the Battle of Peachtree Creek, his final battle. Others believe he's drawn by the presence of modern-day veterans who come to pay respects. A final encounter. In 2022, a woman named Rachel, a military widow, visited Rose Hollow with her young son to lay flowers. As she stood quietly near Elias Carter's grave, the child began waving excitedly at something behind her. "Look, Mommy," he whispered. "That man's really tall." She turned to see no one, but the boy continued staring, his smile fading slowly. "He's going back to the trees now," he murmured, pointing. Rachel later admitted she hadn't told her son anything about the legend. He couldn't have known. Conclusion: the watcher never leaves. To this day, visitors still leave small offerings at Carter's grave: coins, flags, even letters. One note simply read, "You are not forgotten." Some believe that when someone finally tells his full story, when Elias is remembered not just as a name on a stone, but as a man with dreams, fears, and honor, he may finally find peace. But until then, when the night falls and silence settles over Rose Hollow, you might hear it too: the steady crunch of boots on earth, the creak of leather straps, the low murmur of a voice repeating orders only he can hear. And if you see the shape of a soldier walking between the tombstones, salute him, because he's still on duty. Let's move on to part 5 of the story: the ghost at the historic restaurant. Nestled just off the winding country roads near Morgantown, West Virginia, stands an old brick building with ivy curling up its walls and windows that seem to watch the world go by. To the locals, it's simply known as the Hearth and Vine, a charming restaurant famous for its hearty Appalachian meals and vintage decor. But beneath the warmth of candlelight and the scent of baked cornbread lies a story the owners don't print on the menu. A ghost lives here. Origins of the haunting. The Hearth and Vine wasn't always a restaurant. Long before the tablecloths and polished silverware, the structure was a 2-story colonial home built in the early 1800s, surrounded by dense forest and silence. The land was passed down through generations of a single family, the Ashcrofts. According to local lore, tragedy struck sometime around 1872. The youngest daughter, Eliza Ashcroft, was found dead in the garden behind the house. Her throat had been cut, and there were signs of a struggle. Though the local sheriff launched an investigation, no one was ever arrested. Within months, the Ashcroft family sold the estate and disappeared from public record. The house stood vacant for decades, slowly crumbling until it was purchased in the 1980s and transformed into a rustic eatery. The renovations unearthed more than just antiques: cold spots and footsteps. From the moment it reopened, staff began to report strange occurrences. New hires often quit within weeks, citing bad vibes or unexplained chills. The kitchen, though warm from ovens and steam, often had sudden drops in temperature, especially near the back pantry, where Eliza's body was allegedly discovered. One waitress, Megan, shared her experience in a local paranormal forum. She had stayed late to help clean after closing. The dining room was empty, chairs stacked, the lights dimmed. As she walked toward the kitchen, she heard distinct footsteps on the hardwood behind her, soft, deliberate, like someone walking barefoot. She turned. No one. Then the air grew icy. Her breath became visible, and a low humming sound, melodic but mournful, drifted from the hallway. She never stayed after hours again. The woman in the window. A recurring story told by both employees and guests involves a woman's face seen staring out of the second-floor window. The upper level, closed to the public and used only for storage, has become infamous for its haunting energy. Delivery drivers often mention seeing someone standing behind the curtains, pale skin, dark hair, a sorrowful expression, as if watching the world with regret. One driver knocked on the door once to report the sighting, thinking someone might be trapped inside. The manager checked. The upstairs was locked, lights off, and the alarm system unbroken. Still, the sightings persist. The locked room, There's a small room upstairs that no one uses anymore. It was once intended to be a wine storage area, but after too many unexplained incidents, the door was permanently shut. Employees have reported the sound of knocking from the inside, even when no one is up there. The most disturbing account came from a dishwasher named Cody, who wandered upstairs during a shift change to grab supplies. He found the door to the locked room slightly ajar. Thinking nothing of it, he stepped inside and immediately felt something was wrong. It was like stepping underwater, he said later. My ears popped. The lights flickered. Then I felt someone right behind me. He turned. No one was there, but on the mirror across the room, a single word had appeared in the dust. Help. A candle incident. In 2019, during a power outage caused by a storm, the restaurant was lit by candles for a few hours. Guests enjoyed the ambience until one table near the old fireplace began to feel uneasy. The candle at the center of their table flickered wildly, then extinguished itself despite there being no breeze. Seconds later, it relit on its own. The table next to them saw it happen. One of the guests, a retired nurse, reportedly whispered, "There's someone sitting here with us." She excused herself and never returned. Paranormal investigation. Word of the haunting eventually reached a regional paranormal team. In the fall of 2021, they were granted overnight access to the building. Using EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and EVP recorders, they spent hours exploring every room. Their findings were chilling. EVP captured a woman whispering, "I was waiting." A shadowy figure was recorded crossing the second floor hallway despite no one being present. One camera caught what appeared to be a faint outline of a woman in a 19th century dress, standing at the top of the stairs, motionless. At 3:14 a.m., every camera battery drained simultaneously. The building plunged into total silence. Theories. Some believe Eliza's spirit remains because her murder was never solved. Others think she's searching for someone, perhaps her killer or a lost love. A local historian uncovered a journal belonging to Eliza's older brother. In it, a cryptic entry reads, "The night mother wept. The garden held more than rain." Eliza knew too much. This has led to speculation that her death was not random, but tied to a family secret. Whatever the truth, the house-turned-restaurant holds the echoes of a young woman whose life ended too soon. Respecting the spirit, despite its haunted history, the hearth and vine remains open and thriving. Most patrons never experience anything unusual, save for the occasional flickering light or sudden chill. But those who know the story treat the place with quiet reverence. Some regulars leave flowers near the garden gate, the spot where Eliza was found. Others place coins on the windowsill, a tradition meant to appease lingering spirits. And every year, on the anniversary of her death, October 19th, the restaurant closes early. The staff leaves a single candle burning on a corner table by the window upstairs, just in case she's still watching. Let's get to part 6 of the story, the Phantom Train of West Virginia. Between the misty hills and rain-drenched valleys of West Virginia, where dense forests cradle the old railway lines, there's a stretch of track that locals speak of in hushed voices. It runs between the cities of Charleston and Huntington, a path once vital to industry and travel, now partly forgotten by modern commerce. Yet even in its fading relevance, the line holds a secret. It's said that on foggy nights, especially during a heavy drizzle or after thunder rolls across the hills, you can hear the sound of a train that doesn't exist. A ghost train. The first sightings. The earliest record of the phenomenon dates back to 1904, just a few years after a devastating derailment along that very track. According to archived newspaper clippings from the Charleston Gazette, a freight train heading westbound lost control during a storm and plunged into the Elk River, killing 6 crewmen instantly. The wreckage was cleared, the track repaired, and operations resumed, but not for long. That autumn, nearby townspeople began to report something strange. Just past midnight, when no trains were scheduled, they would hear the distinct wail of a steam whistle, low and mournful. Then, the distant clatter of wheels, metal grinding against metal, as if a locomotive were racing through the night. But when they rushed to the tracks, Nothing was there. Only silence. Only mist. Witness accounts. Over the decades, hundreds of sightings have been documented, from weary farmers to late-night truckers parked along rural roads near the tracks. The stories share eerie similarities. One of the most chilling testimonies came from a retired signal operator named Harold Benton. In 1972, he was stationed near Hurricane, West Virginia, when he experienced what he called the most terrifying moment of his life. "I was working the night shift alone," he recalled. "There was no scheduled train for hours. The system confirmed it. Then around 2:13 a.m., crossing lights began flashing. The bells rang. The arms came down, just like they do when a train is approaching. He stepped outside and looked toward the track. I saw it clear as day. A black locomotive. Old, like something from the turn of the century. Its windows were dark, but the headlamp glowed faintly through the fog. I could hear it rushing by, but I couldn't feel the wind. And then it was gone. No engine, no caboose, no trace on the radar. The woman in white. Many who've seen the ghost train describe a solitary figure standing at the rear. A woman in white, motionless, often described as wearing a long 19th century dress with dark hair trailing down her back. Legend has it she was a passenger on the original doomed train, the only civilian aboard, traveling to meet her fiancé in Huntington. She wasn't listed on the manifest, leading some to believe she boarded in secret or had stowed away. Her body was never recovered from the river. Some say she's still searching for her destination. Modern encounters. As recently as 2021, reports of the ghost train have continued. A group of college students from Marshall University were camping near an old service road by the tracks when they were startled by the unmistakable sound of a train barreling toward them. "We thought we were about to die," said one of the students. "It was loud. You could feel the rails shaking. But when we jumped up to move off the gravel, there was nothing. Just the trees and the fog." One girl in the group claimed to see a lantern swinging in the air, moving along the track like it was being carried by an invisible hand. The train that brings dreams. Not all experiences with the phantom train are terrifying. Some locals claim the train appears in dreams, especially to those who live near the tracks. These dreams are always vivid, detailed, and carry a heavy emotional weight. One recurring dream described by multiple people involves boarding the ghost train and seeing loved ones who have passed, sitting silently in the passenger cars, gazing out the window as the train rolls endlessly through fog. Psychics and paranormal researchers speculate that the train acts as a spiritual vessel, ferrying souls or memories across the boundary between life and death. Attempted investigations. Paranormal teams have tried, unsuccessfully, to capture the ghost train on video. Motion detectors set along the rails have triggered in the absence of any physical presence. EMF readers spike without reason. Recordings capture brief, unexplained whistles and rhythmic clattering, only to fall silent seconds later. One investigator, Jessica Malden, described an incident where their crew witnessed the train passing. But when reviewing their footage, all cameras had gone black for exactly 66 seconds. During this time, their field notes mention intense static in the air and a sense of being observed from all directions. Superstitions and warnings. Among longtime residents, the ghost train is a well-known presence and not to be taken lightly. Children are warned not to play near the tracks after dark. Campers who stay too close to the line have been known to wake up covered in soot with no logical explanation. A local superstition claims that if you hear the train 3 nights in a row, someone in your family may fall ill or die within the month. While most dismiss it as folklore, the stories persist. The unanswered questions. Why does the phantom train keep appearing? Is it a spiritual imprint of a tragic accident, playing on loop for eternity? Is it some type of time slip, a ripple in the fabric of reality that allows a piece of the past to bleed into the present? Or is it a warning, an echo reminding us that even steel and fire can't protect us from fate? Whatever the answer, those who have heard its whistle, felt its presence, or glimpsed its silhouette in the fog never forget it. And if you ever find yourself driving along Route 60 on a rainy night, with the mist rolling low across the trees. Roll down your window and listen. You might just hear the ghost train of West Virginia. Let's get to part 7 of the story, The Miner's Ghost. In the shadowed valleys of West Virginia, where fog clings to the mountains and time seems to pause among rusting steel and crumbling timbers, lies an abandoned coal mine known to locals simply as Whistler Hollow. Once a bustling center of labor and livelihood, it now stands silent, forgotten by industry, but not by memory, and certainly not by the dead. The collapse. The story begins in 1911, when the Whistler Hollow mine suffered one of the region's worst underground collapses. According to historical records, 23 miners were working below when a sudden tremor caused the central shaft to buckle. The ground shook like thunder, beams snapped like brittle bones, and an entire section of the mine was buried under tons of rock and soil. Rescue efforts were immediate, but ultimately futile. Of the 23 men, only one body was ever recovered. The rest were sealed within the mountain, entombed in the very coal they worked to extract. For years, mourning families left flowers at the entrance. Some prayed, others cursed the mine for its greed and negligence. Eventually, the site was closed, gated, and left to rot. But the silence did not last. The first echoes. Decades later, local teenagers dared each other to sneak into the overgrown trails that led toward the collapsed mine entrance. The bravest among them, always the ones who stayed the longest, came back pale and shaken. They spoke of sounds, muffled thuds, clinks of metal against stone, the rhythmic hum of a drill echoing from beneath the earth. Once, a girl claimed to hear someone coughing, choked and raspy, as though buried alive. No one believed her, until others heard it too. The miner's shadow. In the 1980s, a man named Elias Rourke, a former miner himself, began documenting the strange occurrences at Whistler Hollow. Driven by both curiosity and guilt, his grandfather had worked in that very shaft. Rourke spent several weekends camping near the entrance. One night, he recorded audio while sitting alone with only a lantern and a thermos of coffee. On the tape, you can clearly hear his voice narrating the peaceful surroundings. Then a sharp metallic clang. Then the low rumble of a distant machine, as if an engine had stirred to life deep underground. Moments later, Rourke whispers, "I see something." A silence, then frantic breathing. The recorder drops. Heavy footsteps. The final 3 seconds of the tape are drowned in what sounds like picks striking stone, accompanied by a faint but unmistakable voice. "Still down here." Rourke never returned to the mine. He refused interviews and died in 1992. His family released the tape posthumously. Paranormal researchers now refer to it as the Whistler Hollow recording. The lantern light. In more recent years, hikers exploring the surrounding hills have reported a single, swinging lantern moving through the trees near dusk. It floats steadily, sometimes dipping low, sometimes vanishing behind rocks, only to appear again moments later, further along the trail. Multiple witnesses claim to have followed the light, only to lose their way and find themselves standing within yards of the collapsed mine entrance, despite never intending to go there. Some say the light is the miner's spirit, trying to lead people away from the cursed site. Others believe he's trying to lure them in. The smell of coal and oil. One curious detail repeated across different witness reports is the unmistakable smell of coal dust and burning oil, especially strong during the early evening hours. The smell wafts out from nowhere, sometimes on windless nights, lingering for a few seconds before vanishing entirely. Even in the dead of winter, when snow blankets the hills and the trails are inaccessible, locals report smelling it while walking their dogs or driving past the old turnoff on County Road 12. One woman swears her dog refuses to go near the path during those moments, whining and pulling at the leash, as if something unseen waits in the trees. The haunting dreams. Some residents believe the spirit doesn't just haunt the mine, but reaches into the minds of those nearby. Dozens of locals have described a recurring dream. They're trapped in total darkness, feeling the cold press of stone around them. In the dream, there's the sound of drilling, but no way to tell where it's coming from. Then a voice, distant but pleading. "We're still down here. We never made it out." The dream ends with a flash of light and the face of a soot-covered man, staring directly into theirs with hollow, glowing eyes. These dreams tend to come in groups, many people experiencing them the same week, as if something stirs deep in the mind from time to time. Theories and warnings. While skeptics claim it's all folklore or the mind playing tricks in a creepy location, others believe that one spirit in particular remains active. A miner who died last, waiting in vain for a rescue that never came. Some say he was a father of three, whose name was Caleb Mercer. His photo still hangs in a small mining museum in Fayette County. Visitors have reported that the frame around his picture rattles slightly on rainy days, and the image inside appears to blur for a moment before returning to normal. One former park ranger warned amateur ghost hunters never to bring metal tools near the site. They start to vibrate, he said, like something underground is calling to them. The final knock. In 2019, a small team of YouTubers attempted a 24-hour stay at Whistler Hollow. Their final video, titled Trapped Underground, Ghost Miner in West Virginia, showed them exploring the outer perimeter of the mine and mocking the legend. Around 3:07 a.m., their camera caught a loud series of knocks, 3 in a row, coming from a sealed entrance. Then silence. The team left in a panic. They later admitted that one of their crew members, who didn't appear on camera afterward, began sleepwalking for months, murmuring things like, "I'm still digging," and "We never got out." He eventually moved out of state. Conclusion: the Whistler Hollow mine remains closed. Its entrance rusted over and covered in warning signs. But the sounds persist. The smells return. The lantern still appears in the dark. Whether it is guilt, grief, or something more ancient that keeps the miner's spirit tethered to that place is unclear. But if you ever find yourself wandering the backwoods of West Virginia, and you hear the distant sound of drilling, or see a soft yellow light bobbing between the trees, remember, some souls are buried too deep to rest. Let's move on to part 8 of the story, the ghosts of McClung House, tucked away on a quiet street in Charleston, West Virginia. The McClung House stands as a relic of a bygone era, with its fading white columns, creaking floorboards, and ivy-choked walls. The house seems to lean slightly into the wind, like it's listening. Locals walk faster when passing it. Children dare each other to touch its gate. Some claim it watches back. What makes this old mansion truly unsettling isn't its appearance. It's what happens after dark. A history etched in grief. Built in the early 1800s, the McClung House was once the proud estate of Edward and Lillian McClung, prominent figures in Charleston's early political and social circles. The couple was known for lavish parties, grand gardens, and a perfect family facade. But behind those manicured walls, things unraveled quietly. Over the span of 2 decades, the McClungs endured tragedy after tragedy. Their first daughter died at age 6 of a fever. Their second son drowned in the reflecting pond behind the property. Lillian herself was later found dead at the base of the main staircase, a broken neck the result of a mysterious fall no one witnessed. Edward McClung, a once vibrant man, withdrew completely. He was last seen alive sitting in the drawing room, staring at a painting of Lillian. When staff returned the next morning, he was gone. No body was ever found. The windows that breathe, visitors to the house, now preserved as a historic site, though rarely open to the public, report one detail again and again. The windows move on their own, closed tight in the evening. They are often found wide open by morning, even during winter storms. Tour guides have locked them shut in front of witnesses, only to hear them creak open moments later, one by one. Worse still, many claim to feel a sudden chill just before a window unlatches, as though someone, or something, is moving through the house, looking for a way out, or perhaps way back in. Footsteps on the wood. Staff and researchers working late have recorded unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The sound is distinct, measured, slow, as if someone is pacing the second-floor corridor. When someone goes up to investigate, the footsteps stop, wait in silence long enough, and the steps begin again. Only this time, right behind you. One former historian quit after an encounter on a rainy autumn evening. He claims he heard a child's voice whisper, "Come see the garden," followed by soft laughter. He turned to see no one, but muddy footprints of a barefoot child appeared across the polished floor. The prints ended at the wall. The mirror in the parlor. Perhaps the most disturbing artifact in the house is the large ornate mirror in the main parlor. It is said to have belonged to Lillian McClung and was imported from Europe shortly before her death. Visitors often feel uneasy in front of it. Some say their reflections move a second too slow. Others claim to see a shadow standing behind them, even when they're alone in the room. During one guided tour in 2009, a guest fainted after seeing the reflection of a man in old-fashioned clothes staring through the window, a window that was boarded shut at the time. Watched by the past, one of the most commonly reported sensations inside McClung House is that of being watched. Tourists describe it as a pressure, an invisible weight, resting on the back of their necks. Even in empty rooms, visitors have spun around, convinced someone was behind them. In some cases, they were right. CCTV footage installed in the foyer captured a translucent figure standing just beyond the staircase. The figure remained motionless for exactly 47 seconds before fading into the shadows. Paranormal investigators later enhanced the footage and noted that the figure appeared to be wearing 19th century formal wear, matching descriptions of Edward McClung from preserved photographs. The locked room. There's one room in the house that remains permanently locked. The bedroom that once belonged to the McClung's daughter, Clara. Though the house is now maintained by a historical society, no one has entered the room in over 30 years. Every attempt to unlock the door has failed. Locksmiths report jammed mechanisms and warped hinges, despite no visible signs of damage. Yet sometimes at night, the sound of a music box playing an eerie, off-key lullaby can be heard behind the door. Once, a janitor swore he saw a tiny handprint appear on the frosted glass window inside the room. There were no children on the property. Strange occurrences continue. Locals report flickering lights visible from the upper windows, despite no power running to the building. Some have seen candles moving across the rooms, tiny flames floating through the air like fireflies behind the glass. One delivery driver said he saw a woman in white standing in the upstairs window waving. He knocked on the front door to drop off a package and waited. When no one answered, he called the contact number. The society director answered and informed him, "There's no one inside. We haven't opened that house in weeks." The driver never delivered there again. The final sightings. Every few years, someone disappears near the McClung house, usually urban explorers or paranormal YouTubers hoping to film a haunting. Most are found quickly, having wandered off or gotten lost in the thick brush behind the property. But in 2015, 2 college students vanished after breaking in at night. Their phones were later recovered from the garden. Both had stopped recording at exactly 3:03 a.m. The last photo on the phone shows the parlor mirror. In the reflection, 3 people standing in the room. Only 2 entered. The house waits. Today, the McClung house remains closed to the public. The official reason? Ongoing structural concerns. Unofficially, many believe the house is not empty and never has been, that the McClungs, and perhaps those they took with them, remain within its walls, replaying the quiet tragedies of their lives over and over, unable to let go. If you pass by on a quiet night, you might hear the click of a window unlatching, the faint patter of childlike feet, or a voice, barely above a whisper, asking, "Why did you leave us behind?" And if you look up at the window above the parlor, you just might see a face watching you, waiting for someone to finally see them. Let's move on to part 9 of the story, a highway wanderer. There's a stretch of highway just outside Clay, West Virginia, that locals try to avoid at night. It's not the condition of the road, nor the wild animals that occasionally dart across it. It's something much stranger, something that has made truckers swerve, made travelers cry out, and left even the most seasoned drivers with pale faces and trembling hands. They call him the highway wanderer, a curve with a history. The curve near mile marker 214 is infamous. Over the last 3 decades, more than a dozen accidents have occurred at that precise spot. All were single-vehicle incidents, often reported in good weather, with no clear cause. Drivers would later say they thought they saw someone on the road. A man, standing still, right in their headlights. And then nothing. By the time the brakes screech, the tires smoke, and the car lurches to a stop, he's already gone. Who was he? Local legend says the ghost is that of Thomas Reynard, a 32-year-old mechanic from Clay who died on that same highway in 1987. According to reports, he had just finished repairing a friend's car and was walking home late at night when he was struck by a passing vehicle. The driver never stopped. His body was found in a shallow ditch the next morning, face turned to the sky, one arm raised, as if still trying to wave for help. The case was ruled a hit and run. No suspect was ever found. First encounters. The first modern-day sighting came in 1993, when a truck driver named Earl Jenkins claimed he saw a man standing by the roadside just before the fatal curve. The figure was dressed in a dark jacket and jeans, staring straight at him. Jenkins slowed down instinctively, feeling something was off. As he passed the figure, he glanced at his rearview mirror. The man was gone. A chill crept down Jenkins' spine, but he kept driving. Later that week, he learned another driver had flipped his truck at the same curve, trying to avoid a man in the road. They compared notes. It was the same description. The man who vanishes. The highway wanderer doesn't behave like a normal ghost. He doesn't float. He doesn't moan. He doesn't pass through walls. He stands. He waits. Sometimes he even waves. Witnesses describe a solid-looking man, often mistaken for a real person at first glance. He has short brown hair, sometimes wears a hooded jacket, and appears between midnight and 3 a.m. Some say he looks lost. Others say he's staring right into your soul. Many drivers report pulling over, convinced someone needs help, only to find no one there. Their headlights illuminate nothing but mist and asphalt. And then comes the feeling, a weight in the chest, a pressure behind the eyes, like something unseen just passed through them. A pattern emerges. Over time, locals began to document the sightings. A group of amateur paranormal investigators, called the Appalachian Watchers, set up cameras and motion detectors along the curve in 2006. They never captured a full image, but one night their recorder caught audio, the soft crunch of gravel, followed by a quiet, desperate voice whispering, "Help me, it's so cold." The devices shut off moments later. When reviewed the next morning, the footage had been wiped, corrupted beyond recovery. They didn't try again. The driver who spoke to him. In 2011, a woman named Marissa Halford was driving through the curve at around 1:45 a.m. when she saw him, standing just off the shoulder, staring at her car. Unlike most, Marissa didn't pass him by. She stopped. "I don't know why," she later told a reporter. Something in his eyes. It didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like someone who was lost, someone who needed help. She rolled down her window. "Are you okay?" she called. The man stepped forward, slowly. His lips moved, but no sound came out. And then he vanished mid-step, like smoke blown away by wind. Her engine sputtered. Her radio turned to static. Then everything came back online. She drove home in silence, hands shaking on the wheel. A memorial left behind. In 2015, a makeshift cross and flowers appeared on the side of the highway near the curve. No one claimed responsibility for it. Drivers began to report that after the memorial went up, the sightings changed. The ghost no longer stood still, he walked. Some saw him walking along the shoulder, as if retracing his final steps home. Others saw him kneeling by the memorial itself, head bowed, unaware of their passing cars. But when a storm blew the cross down in 2019, the sightings turned darker again. That same year, 3 separate accidents occurred within a 2-month span. Each driver claiming they saw the man in the road, arms raised, dreams and nightmares. A strange phenomenon began to emerge among those who saw the ghost. They began to dream about him. One young man said he dreamt of a cold hand gripping his shoulder. Another dreamt of walking down a never-ending highway, only to see his own reflection in the ghost's face. Some even woke to find muddy footprints near their beds, despite no open windows or doors. One woman reportedly found a handwritten note on her dashboard the morning after sighting. It said, "I didn't see the car. Please tell them I didn't see it." The paper was soaked, smeared with rainwater, but it hadn't rained that night. The curve still waits. Today, a highway near Clay remains in use. The curve still claims the occasional vehicle. And the wanderer? He still shows up, standing silent beneath the moonlight, jacket rustling in the breeze. Some say he's searching for justice. Others say he doesn't know he's dead. A few whisper that he's not trying to stop drivers. He's trying to warn them. Whatever the truth, if you ever find yourself driving near mile marker 214 between midnight and 3 a.m., keep your eyes on the road. If you see a man standing alone, do not stop. And whatever you do, don't wave back. Let's get to part 10 of the story. The haunted house of Hilliard. Tucked away at the edge of the Hilliard woods, there stands a decaying structure that no one dares to claim. With rotting shutters, shattered windows, and ivy strangling its weather-beaten frame. The house looks every bit like a cliché from a horror film. But the fear it instills in the people of Hilliard is no fantasy. It is real, and it is born not of imagination, but of memory. The locals simply call it the burned house. A fire in the night. The story goes that sometime in the late 1960s, the house was home to the Hollingsworth family, a couple and their 3 young children. They were quiet folks, rarely seen in town except for school runs and grocery visits. Then, one cold November night, tragedy struck. A fire erupted in the house, its flames rising like beacons into the sky. By the time the neighbors noticed and emergency crews arrived, it was too late. The fire consumed the structure with terrifying speed. All 5 members of the Hollingsworth family perished inside. No cause of the fire was ever determined. Some said faulty wiring. Others whispered about a kerosene lamp tipping over. But then there were darker rumors that the fire started from within, with no natural source. Rumors that something wanted them gone. Echoes behind glass. The house, though charred and blackened, was never demolished. For reasons no one fully understands, it still stands, battered by decades of storms, snow, and sun. And it is in that shell of a home that the stories began. Those brave or foolish, enough to walk the overgrown path to the front porch speak of a strange stillness. No birds chirp, no insects buzz. The air is heavy, as though the earth itself is holding its breath. From the outside, passers-by have reported seeing figures in the windows, pale shapes that drift across rooms, a child's face pressed against the glass, curtains that flutter when no wind is blowing. One man, a hunter named Reed Collier, claimed to see a woman in a nightgown staring out of the second-story window. When he called out, the figure faded like mist. A moment later, the window slammed shut with a force that echoed through the trees. Whispers in the dark. It's not just the visuals that chill the blood. Many who have ventured close to the house report hearing voices, soft conversations, as though a family were gathered for dinner. Laughter, footsteps, and, most disturbingly, the cries of children. One night in 2003, a group of teens dared each other to spend a full hour inside the house. They lasted only 12 minutes. According to their account, the moment they stepped into the living room, they heard a child screaming from upstairs, followed by a man's voice yelling in panic. And then the smell hit them, smoke, thick and choking, though there was no fire. They ran, leaving their flashlights behind. When they returned the next day to retrieve them, the flashlights were lined up neatly on the porch with their batteries removed. Shadows that watch. Others say the house is more than just haunted, it's aware. Visitors often describe the sensation of being watched, even followed. Some say they feel cold spots that move with them, or see their breath fog in front of their face on warm summer nights. A paranormal investigator named Linda Whitaker once attempted an overnight stay with her team. She brought recording equipment, EMF meters, and night vision cameras. At 2:17 a.m., all her devices went dead. Her final recorded audio, before the equipment failed, contained a lullaby, a woman softly humming what sounded like Rockabye Baby. When she awoke the next morning, Linda found herself outside the house, lying on the cold ground, though she had locked herself in the upstairs bedroom. No memory, no explanation. The cameras were inside, untouched, but when she checked the footage, Every frame inside the house was pure static, except one brief, flickering image of a burnt child's hand pressed against the lens. A town silent pact. Ask any longtime resident of Hilliard about the house, and their answers grow quiet. Eyes shift away. Conversations change. It's as if the entire town has reached a silent agreement. Don't speak of it, and maybe it will go away. But it never does. Children who grow up in the area learn to stay far from the house. Some say their dreams are filled with images of fire, of smoke-filled rooms, and the sound of a mother calling out names that are not theirs. Others have seen things at night. A flickering light in the attic window, like a candle being lit and blown out again and again. In one unsettling incident, a woman walking her dog near the woods behind the house swore she saw a small boy standing in the trees, barefoot, his clothes tattered and singed. When she called out to him, he turned and ran straight into the trunk of a tree, vanishing on impact. Is it the family or something else? While many believe the spirits of the Hollingsworth family are what haunt the house, others aren't so sure. Some paranormal experts argue that what remains there now is not human, not anymore. That the tragic deaths may have invited something darker, something that feeds on sorrow and memory, mimicking the cries of children and the shape of the mother to lure in the curious. They warn that the house does not want to be understood. It wants to be felt and feared, and perhaps that is why it still stands, despite decades of decay. Why nature itself seems to resist reclaiming it. One final warning. If you ever find yourself in Hilliard and are tempted to see the house, take this advice. Don't look in the windows. Don't follow the sound of laughter. And if you hear a child crying from inside, run, because in that house, the past is not just remembered. It replays, over and over, like a cursed lullaby, trapping the living in a nightmare born of fire. And once you hear it, it never truly leaves you.